Georgia is amazing. With the most beautiful nature in the world, coupled with the bustling streets of Tbilisi and the absolute best wine on offer, it doesn't matter if you're a family traveler looking for a relaxing vacation or an adventurous solo traveler like me. Georgia will not disappoint. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Doc YouTube channel. I am Rohan and I spent 22 days in Georgia in the summer of 2024 curating the absolute best travel guide to this country available on YouTube. I assure you that if you go through all the videos of my Georgia series, you will be 100% prepared for whatever your trip will offer. In this guide, we'll be looking at the budget, the itinerary, the essentials of your trip to Georgia, and also we'll be providing an in-depth guide of where to go, how to get there, what to see, what to do, where to stay, and a whole lot more. Alright, without further ado, let me introduce you to the places you will be visiting on your trip to Georgia. So first off, most flights into the country, including those from India, land in the capital city of Tbilisi, which is super convenient because Tbilisi serves as a great base for people on a short itinerary because you can get direct transfers to almost all the tourist destinations across the country. However, if you are flying in from Europe or some places in the Middle East, there is a small chance that you will be flying into a city called Kutaisi. Kutaisi is a city in the central part of Georgia where basically a bunch of budget airlines operate. But for the sake of simplicity, I'll be assuming Tbilisi to be the starting point of this itinerary. So, coming back to the capital city of Georgia, which is Tbilisi, where you will most likely be starting your trip. From a tourism standpoint, Tbilisi is not a huge city at all. That is because most of the tourist attractions, as well as the hostels and hotels, are conveniently located in one part of town, which is known as the Old Town. So that is where most of your time in Tbilisi would be spent. Keeping this in mind, I feel 2 days is a great amount of time to go around all the attractions in Tbilisi. This obviously does not include day trips from Tbilisi. I'll be discussing more on that later in the video. But for all the tourist attractions in Tbilisi, the must-visit ones such as the Holy Trinity Cathedral, the Mother of Georgia statue, Narikala Fortress, and the sulfur baths in Tbilisi, all of that included, I think 2 full days is a great amount of time to go around Tbilisi. If you want a detailed guide on things to do and see in Tbilisi so you can make the most out of your time, be sure to check out my Tbilisi city guide on my channel where I break down everything you need to know about the time you'll spend in Tbilisi, including transportation, food, restaurants, hotels, etc. So now that you've gotten comfortable and spent some days in Georgia, it's time to go on some exciting day trips. First up, just north of Tbilisi is the small town of Matsketa, home to a bunch of beautiful cathedral complexes, including the very famous Jvari Monastery. The Jvari Monastery is one of the oldest cathedral complexes in Georgia, and best of all, it has an amazing scenic location and view. It's a must-visit place in Georgia and you should definitely not miss out on that. Another very popular day trip from Tbilisi is probably some of the most interesting places in Georgia. It is first up the city of Gori. Gori is the birthplace of the dictator Joseph Stalin, and they have a huge museum there dedicated to Joseph Stalin himself. They have his house, that's the place where he was born, preserved as it is, and they also have a coach from his famous train. So that is a must-visit place if you're interested in that sort of history. Just a 20-minute drive from Gori is the amazing archaeological complex of Uplisike. Uplisike is personally one of my favorite places in all of Georgia. It's a huge and well-preserved complex of a series of caves carved into the mountainside, which served as the resting place and monasteries of the priests who lived there. It has amazing views, and overall it's a unique and super cool place to be at. But be sure to wear something comfortable since there is a fair bit of climbing involved to get the full experience. If you want a detailed breakdown of each of these day trips, as well as some other alternatives, be sure to check out this detailed video I've made on all possible day trip options from Tbilisi. Alright, next up, let me introduce you to the incredible winemaking region of Kakheti. Located in eastern Georgia, this entire region is filled with beautiful vineyards and dotted with amazing wineries. So, needless to say, I hope you are prepared to get drunk. Um, the two major cities in this region are Telavi and Signagi. Now, most people, or let's say a large amount of people, they visit Kakheti as part of a wine tour from Tbilisi and they do it as a day trip. But if you can spare the time, I would highly recommend staying at least a night in Signagi. Signagi is a cute little town filled with nice markets and good architecture. It has a relaxed, laid back vibe. Now, if you do choose to stay in Signagi, I can highly recommend Nato and Lado's guest house. This small little guest house is run by an absolutely amazing family, and in all my time traveling to 11 countries, this is probably one of the leading guest houses that I've ever stayed at just because of their hospitality. If you do choose to stay, be sure to say hi from my end. Just to be clear, this is not sponsored. I absolutely loved staying with them. Now, as I said, the primary thing to do in Kakheti is the amazing wine tours. And of course, if you're on a short itinerary, it's entirely possible to visit Kakheti on a day tour from Tbilisi. A lot of these wine tours also stop over in Signagi for the nearby tourist attractions, so you could get a bit of both. Me personally, I booked my wine tour from the Nato and Lado's guest house. It costed me about 100 lari for the whole day. We started at 9 a.m. and we were back around 7 p.m. with a bunch of stops along the way. This cost included about 60 lari for transportation, and the rest was the overhead expenses for the entrance fees, the lunch, the snacks, etc. I would, however, recommend that if you have a flexible itinerary, then be sure to visit more local wineries than commercial ones, since the commercial ones are a tad bit more expensive and moreover they offer less in terms of wine and also the experience. But at the local ones, you can just sit around for longer and get a more authentic experience. I'm naming a few right here, and I'm also going to drop the Google Maps links in the description. So be sure to check out more local ones. I think that's a more authentic experience. If you want an in-depth guide to the Kakheti region, as well as a stop-by-stop breakdown of my entire wine tour, be absolutely sure to check out my Kakheti region guide on my channel, where I break down all the costs, the entire budget, the transportation, of course the details of the wine tour, and everything that you need to know about the Kakheti region. Now let me blow your mind by introducing you to Kazbegi. And let me make it very clear. If you're spending time in Georgia and you're not visiting Kazbegi, you're making a huge mistake. This region is arguably the most beautiful region in all of Georgia, and the best part is that it's super accessible from Tbilisi. Located north of Tbilisi, the entire region is dotted with things to do and places to visit. But the relaxed little town of Stepantsminda is the main city in the region, and it serves as a great base for people going around Kazbegi. The town itself is absolutely beautiful, located in the midst of huge mountains and offering views of some great snow-capped peaks. Pretty close to the town of Stepantsminda is the really famous Gurgeti Trinity Church. It's one of the highest visited places in all of Georgia, and I would 100% recommend hiking up to the church from the town of Stepantsminda if you're up for the challenge. It's a pretty easy hike and definitely rewarding. But if you're not much of a hiker, there's a road that leads directly up to the church, and the views from the church as well as the area around it, they're absolutely amazing. Gurgeti Trinity is definitely one of the must-visit places in Georgia. For my fellow hikers out there, you have the opportunity to hike all the way to the Gurgeti Glacier from the Gurgeti Trinity Church. It's a long and difficult hike, but extremely rewarding. So if you have the time and you're up for the challenge, it's an amazing thing to do while in Kazbegi. Also, just around the town of Stepantsminda, there's a bunch of great hikes dotted around. The great part is that all of these can be done as a day hike from Stepantsminda. And if you're interested in that, there is a company called mountain freaks with an office in the town center of Stepantsminda. They organize daily shuttle buses from the city center to the starting point of these trails, so you can check that out, and that's an amazing and convenient way to get started on these hikes. Now, something to note is that the highway leading from Tbilisi to the town of Stepantsminda is known as the Georgian Military Highway, and this road is super famous in itself because along its way it's dotted with a lot of tourist destinations and a lot of places to visit, a lot of which have super great history attached to them. So for this particular route, it would be amazing if you did not rely on public transport and if you could arrange a private transfer, because then you can stop at each of these places and have the full experience. For cheaper alternatives than arranging a private transfer and the best stop-by-stop itinerary of the Georgian Military Highway available on YouTube, check out my Kazbegi region guide. I've put a lot of work into it and I give out some really useful information for making your time in Kazbegi amazing. Now, I'd like to point out that it's entirely possible to do Kazbegi as a day trip from Tbilisi, and there is a lot of tour companies offering this itinerary as well. But personally, I would recommend staying at least a night in Kazbegi, if not more, because arguably it is the most beautiful region in all of Georgia, and I prefer it to Tbilisi any day of the week. Now, let's talk about a few destinations worth adding to your trip based on your interests. First up is the coastal town of Batumi. Batumi is the most popular beach destination in all of Georgia. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of the city. It feels like a fake tourist town in my opinion, but it still has some amazing, unique and crazy architecture worth checking out. The beaches can be a bit rocky in places, but if you are a beach person and you need a bit of a break from the mountains, then it doesn't hurt to visit. There's a direct train from Tbilisi to Batumi, so it makes it pretty convenient to visit it as well. Now, if you are a hiker and you're looking for the best hiking opportunity in all of Georgia, then the best mountain views of the Caucasus and the best lush green trails can be found on the 4-day hike between Mestia and Ushkuli, located in the northwestern region of Svaneti. Hands down, this hike has the best mountain views in all of Georgia. It's personally my favorite hike that I've ever done. The best part about this hike is that even though it's a multi-day trek, you do not need to rely on camping, as there's small villages where you can find guest houses for each of the nights that you will be on the trek. If you are not hiking, however, I would recommend skipping Svaneti. Even though Svaneti is my favorite region of Georgia, the best views and the best experiences are found on the hike. Some people do choose to spend a day or two in Mestia and Ushkuli via road, but I don't think it's worth it since the best experience is on the hike and the towns don't really have that much to do on their own. That wraps up the itinerary part of this video, and just to recap, Tbilisi, Kazbegi and a wine tour in Kakheti are the must-visit things to do in any Georgia itinerary. If you have the time and if you are a hiker, then you should definitely consider hiking between Mestia and Ushkuli as well. The rest of the places you can pick and choose based on your interests. Now let's discuss a few more essentials for your trip to Georgia. First, starting with the currency. Now, as of August 2024, one Georgian lari is equivalent to about 31 Indian rupees, and one US dollar is equivalent to about 2.6 to 2.7 Georgian lari. To get your hands on the local currency, as long as you're in Tbilisi, I would recommend using the various money exchanges. Personally, I'd recommend the area around Liberty Square in Old Town. It's filled with a lot of money exchanges all along the streets, and you can just walk around and look for the best price. There's a bunch of big banks and public sector banks offering the service, as well as a lot of private lenders. So that area and Old Town in general is filled with money exchanges. Outside of Tbilisi, the exchange rate is absolutely terrible. So it is better to rely on the ATMs. Personally, Bank of Georgia and the TBC Bank are some of the more famous banks in Georgia. So if you find an ATM with those, that's probably a safe option. And most ATMs around the country, irrespective of where you are, charge about 2 to 5 lari as extra withdrawal fees on international cards. Just to be clear, there are multiple ATMs and money exchange options at the arrivals hall in the Tbilisi airport as well. Now let's discuss the all-important SIM card. And this is a simple answer. Prefer to use Magti. Magdi is the single largest SIM card provider in all of Georgia. Their coverage is absolutely amazing. Even when I was hiking in Svaneti, even when I was hiking in Kazbeki, in the middle of the mountains, most of the times I had pretty decent cell phone service. So I would definitely recommend Magdi. They have 1 week, 1 month, and day plans with unlimited data. You can add calling on by yourself. Also, you can use the MyMagdi app once you purchase a SIM card to recharge it on your own and really, compare the various plans they offer and choose what's best for you. Let's get to the Georgian cuisine. Now, let me just start off by being very clear. I am personally not a huge fan of Georgian food. In my 20 something days in Georgia, I experienced a wide variety of their cuisine, but most of it I found was based on a lot of bread and a lot of cheese. In general, the little bit of variety that I did find wasn't as complete as I would have hoped for. That being said, the must-try dishes during your time in Georgia include the large dumplings known as kinkali, the super famous khachapuri, which can be prepared in a bunch of varieties. The one you see in the footage right now is the Ajarian khachapuri or the boat-shaped khachapuri, and some other preparations are more similar to a margarita cheese pizza. The third and probably my favorite dish in all of Georgia, if it's well prepared, is the shikmeruli or the chicken in garlic sauce. I felt this was a pretty unique taste, something I hadn't experienced before. And also, don't forget to pair whatever you're having with a nice glass of Georgian wine. Towards the tail end of this video, let's talk about transportation. Now, before I even begin, I'd like to let you guys know that I have worked very hard to create the absolute complete and perfect transportation guide for Georgia. I would recommend all of you to watch it after the end of this video. This guide contains complete information about all the options into getting to all of the most famous tourist places, including a complete public transportation schedule, all of the fares, and everything you need to know about transportation in Georgia. Every single person planning a trip to Georgia should definitely watch this video, as it will make it so much more convenient for you to move around the country. Anyhow, for the sake of this video, let's start with some of the most essential information. First up, and most importantly, being do not get scammed at the airport. Well, a taxi from the airport to the Tbilisi city center should cost anywhere between 25 to 30 lari, even in the odd hours of night. Now, you book this taxi by using the most popular taxi app in Georgia, which is Bolt. Bolt usually serves the purpose 99% of the times throughout Georgia, but as an alternative, you can also use an app called Yandex. Now, do not, and I repeat, do not ever book a taxi with the private taxi vendors available at the airport. They will charge you anywhere between 80 to 120 lari, and they will tell you that the price on Bolt is the starting price and the per kilometer price is extra on top of that, but do not fall for that. 25 to 30 lari is what you should be paying for a comfortable taxi from the airport to the Tbilisi city center. For my budget travelers who want to use public transportation, bus number 337 serves the route from the airport to the city center in Tbilisi. However, this bus only runs between 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. So if you're landing late at night, then you're going to have to book a taxi. Now, within Tbilisi, the public transportation network is pretty well developed. Most of the major areas that you'll need to be at are serviced by the metro lines, and apart from that, the system of city buses is pretty well developed. The buses are fully air conditioned and they are pretty comfortable. So you really shouldn't need to use any alternative means of transport within Tbilisi, but Bolt and Yandex work pretty well. Also, since most of the attractions are centered around Old Town, the need for using a lot of transportation is greatly reduced. You pay for the public transportation by using either the tourist travel cards. These are day passes or weekly passes that you can get, or you pay using a card you can top up. These also you can get at the various bus and metro stations. Alternatively, you can also use your bank card to pay. I break down the advantages and disadvantages of all of these methods in my transportation guide. Now, traveling between cities can be super complex, and there is a huge network of marshrutka minivans, similar to how they can be found in most of Central Asia. These are not so comfortable minivans running between a lot of the major destinations. Now, these depart from various stations across Tbilisi, and I break down the entire schedule and the fare structure of these in my transportation guide since it's too complex to do it here. But they service most of the areas around the country as direct connections from Tbilisi. So if you are on a budget, you should prefer this. Alternatively, you can always just book a tour or a private transfer. More information in my guide. Finally, for long distance travel, you should prefer the trains run by Georgian Railways. They are super comfortable and super cheap trains, notably connecting Tbilisi to Batumi, Kutaisi, and Zugdidi for people transferring to Svaneti. The tickets for these trains can be bought from the official Georgian Railways website, which is www.tre.ge. The trains are pretty cheap and overall a much more preferred way of long distance travel as compared to the Marshrutka minivans. Now, before heading into the visa information, I'm sure all of you guys realize that this guide took a lot of effort to put together and bring to you. It is full of information and it is the best Georgia travel guide on the internet. It would be a great help if you could like and subscribe to the channel as well as check out the other videos in this Georgia series. All of them are similarly full of information, and if you watch all of them, I promise you will not need to refer to any other source while planning your trip. If you have any questions or if I missed anything, be sure to drop it in the comments and I'll respond to it. Finally, let's talk about the e-visa requirements for Indians specifically. Now, the e-visa process for Indians is divided into two steps. In the first step, you go to www.evisa.gov.ge. There, you start your application, you put in your travel dates, your purpose of tourism, and for this step, you just need a scanned copy of your passport, your passport sized photo, and your personal information such as your name and contact information. Not much to do in this first step. Now, once you complete this first step and pay the fee, you get a link on your email for the second step of the visa process. You go to this link, you pay the fee for the second step, and then here you have to upload all of your supporting documents. These include, most importantly, your a scanned copy of your passport. You have to upload your bank statements, just a PDF, and you have to provide the credentials or the password for your income tax filing. These are the most important. Apart from this, you can upload supporting documents of your choosing, such as a cover letter, your visa history, your travel history, and whatever makes your application stronger. The total fee for the visa application amounts to $35 plus bank charges. This includes both the steps. With that, we come to an end of this very informative Georgia guide. If you're looking for some more information and recommendations regarding hotels, restaurants, and whatnot, I'd recommend you check out the region-specific guides and as well as the whole playlist on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I hope this helped you plan your trip to Georgia.